Hey, what's up? This is Daniel Barrett here from AdWordsNerds.com. And in this video, we're going over the absolute best SEO keywords for real estate investors in 2021 and going into 2022. Let's get straight to the video. Now, we're going to go over some of the most helpful and useful SEO metrics you can apply to any keyword research that you do. And I'm going to give you some ideas for turning that list of keywords into actual content that ranks on your real estate investor website. But of course, it's going to be most useful if I could just give you the actual list. So below this video in the description, I'm going to have a link to a Google spreadsheet of all the keywords that we did research on, including some of those useful keyword metrics. So make sure you click on that link, go and make a copy of that file and get that list for yourself. Before we dive into the actual list of keywords, it's important for you to understand a couple key metrics that we use to determine which keywords are valuable and which keywords are not going to be worth our time. Let's talk about parent keywords versus child keywords. Now, parent keyword you can think of as an overarching topic. It's a big idea that's going to have many child keywords associated with it. And similarly, a child keyword is a more specific variation of that keyword. So for example, you might have sell my house as a parent keyword and sell my house fast in Tennessee as a particular variant, the child keyword. Understanding these are important because if you are writing a big piece of content, it's usually going to be about a parent keyword. And then within that content, you might have various variations of that keyword. Those are going to be the child keywords. So you're going to use these together. All right, now let's talk about keyword difficulty. Now I've taken this keyword difficulty score straight from Ahrefs, which is the software I use for some of my SEO research. You can think of it as a relative measure of how savvy your competitors are for a given keyword. Keyword difficulty is based off the backlink profile of your competitors. So if your competitors have more links or they have links from higher ranked sources, that's going to drive the keyword difficulty score up because it's going to be harder for you to break in and rank really aggressively for that keyword. All right, keyword volume. This is a really interesting one, so let's dig into this. Now, you would think keyword volume is basically how many people searched for the keyword. If I have a number in the keyword volume column, that's going to be the number of searchers. But that really isn't the case. And that's primarily because Google and these SEO tools like Ahrefs have a really hard time determining the actual local search volume of any keyword in particular. If you want real hardcore nitty gritty volume data, really the only way to get that data on a given keyword in your market is to spend money on Google Ads and look at your impression volume inside your Google Ads account. I generally use this as a relative gauge. The higher the number, obviously the higher the volume the keyword is likely to be, but it doesn't actually mean that specific number of people are going to search for something in my market or going to see my website or anything like that. The other thing that's interesting is that obviously the shorter a keyword gets, the more searches it tends to have. You're going to get more people searching for something like Zillow than you are for people searching for something like, is Zillow a giant scam stealing money from mom and pop real estate investors? All right, let's talk about return rate. What is the return rate on a keyword? Return rate is essentially how many times someone searches for a keyword on average per month. So if somebody searches for a keyword one time per month, that's going to be return rate of 1. But if they come back to Google and they search for the same keyword again, that's going to drive the return rate up. Return rate is used in SEO as a way of gauging how satisfied searchers were with what they found in Google. If I'm constantly bouncing back to the homepage in Google and typing in the same keyword, that's an indication that I'm not super happy with what I'm finding. And that's an indication for you as a real estate investor trying to optimize your website that there might be an opportunity there. Maybe you can meet the needs of the market better than the resources that are currently ranking in Google. Okay, let's talk about SERP features. SERP here standing for Search Engine Results Page. Search features are these special features you find in Google. So for example, over here, we can see the knowledge panel, which is all this information about Donald Glover. We've got the people also ask feature. You've got a video feature that's pulling in stuff from YouTube. When you have a search result with a lot of these features on it, it's generally an indication that competition is fairly strong and that competition is fairly savvy. All right, let's dive into the top 20 most competitive keywords for real estate investors where everybody is bashing into each other in Google. All right, some interesting ones in here. Obviously, we've got real estate up at the top, which is an obvious one. But again, this brings us back to my point about shorter keywords generally producing higher volumes of both searches and competition, because, of course, real estate can apply to a whole bunch of different stuff. Just because a keyword is competitive does not mean that you can't carve out a really interesting niche in your market by building some high quality content. For example, let's take the keyword Zillow values. Now, clearly it's highly competitive because Zillow is competing for the keyword Zillow values. But I think there's actually a really interesting opportunity to do some kind of editorial content. So, for example, if you did a blog post that said, are Zillow values in Nashville accurate? And you did some original research, you did some number crunching, you could build a piece of content that is not only going to rank in Google, but will actually attract links from news sources, local media, local real estate professionals. They're going to be interested in citing those statistics and they're going to link to you when they do that. Now, one of the classics here is how do I sell my house? Obviously, it can be really competitive, but I think there's always room to do something high quality. If you did something like the complete guide to selling a home in Knoxville, and I don't mean to single out Knoxville, it's just on my mind for whatever reason, you could really spell out the laws involved, the taxes involved, the process. You could have forms, you could have templates. You could have all sorts of stuff that you could pull in and provide value to the potential home seller that I think would do a really good job of ranking, even for a competitive keyword like this one. All right, now let's go over the top 20 least competitive keywords for real estate investors. One of the trends I want to point out here is that when you add regional modifiers, so a town name, a county name, something like that, you are almost always going to dramatically decrease the amount of competition you face, but that's not necessarily going to decrease your lead quality. After all, as a real estate investor, you want local leads. That's the whole point. So saying sell my house fast in Waukesha is going to be just as valuable to you if you're an investor in Waukesha as sell my house fast on a national level. In fact, it's going to be more valuable. Some interesting content ideas jumped out at me here. So for example, any breakdown of celebrity home sales or purchases, this stuff gets searched for all the time and it doesn't often have a lot of competition. So putting together some kind of blog post about why some reality TV star bought a house and what went into it and the pricing and all that stuff, that's a relatively easy way of getting some interesting traffic. Now, it might not directly result in someone selling their home to you, but it's going to be easier to attract links and easier to rank your website for other stuff going forward. Can I sell my house while in forbearance? This is a good example of a weird home sale situation. Now, these types of guides where you really get into the nitty gritty are important because these are going to attract the exact type of people that might want to sell you their home. A really deep piece of content on something like this isn't going to generate a ton of volume. This isn't going to be something that lots and lots of people are searching for every month, but it is going to be something that if you can rank for it, may produce a couple of deals a year. And that's a pretty awesome return on the effort that you might put into a post like that. All right, now let's go on to the top 20 highest volume keywords for real estate investors. A lot of the same ones are going to show up here as on the competition side of this presentation. So we got HUD, we got houses for sale, real estate, etc. I think there's a lot of room in the average real estate market for an investor to do a comparison slash contrast with how iBuyers work. There's a huge opportunity for providing value to your market and for attracting really high quality leads. Now, one of the things I want to point out is that first-time home buyer stuff, it shows up in all of these lists. And obviously, home buyer loans are not seller leads. And if you're a real estate investor, seller leads are usually what you're going after. But there is a benefit to going after this type of keyword with your SEO content. And it's that it provides value to the market, it positions you as an authority, and it attracts links. Links are the lifeblood of SEO. And if you can write content that actually produces links coming in naturally, that is going to be so valuable to your SEO long term. All right, let's talk about the top 20 high return rate keywords for real estate investors. So these are keywords that people searched and then came back to Google shortly after. The thing that really blew my mind when I built this list was These are all the most typical real estate investor keywords. This is the stuff that all my clients go after. Sell my house for cash for homes. We buy houses. We have to understand as an industry that the vast majority of people that come to the websites for real estate investors end up bouncing off and going back to Google because they're just not getting the information that they need. This is a real opportunity to do better. Have your Google Analytics set up, have your Google Tag Manager set up, do some conversion rate optimization, figure out what people are looking at on your website, how they're digesting your information, figure out where people are falling off and why, and then plug that hole. This is the absolute easiest way to not just close more deals and get more leads, but rank your website more aggressively as well. Another interesting one that I noticed here was the prayer to sell house. This type of stuff shows up in pretty much every market, the whole St. Joseph statue type of search. I think you could probably rank in your market pretty easily for a search term like this. And these are people that want to sell their homes. Well, we just covered a lot of stuff. That is a lot of words. Remember, you can get the entire list of the top SEO keywords for real estate investors right now in a Google Sheet. It's totally free. There's no opt-in required. Make sure you click the link below this video to go get that sheet now. Make a copy for your own and use it.